Hey y'all, so I am making this video. This is gonna be part one of, I'd say, like a little mini series I'm gonna do. Forgive my crustiness. It's been a long morning. Alright, so in my braces video where I told you guys how I got my braces off. When I told you guys how I got my braces off, I also told you guys I had my baby. And I did. I had him January 21st, and he was born at 6:22 p.m. I had to have a C-section. And so the reason why I had to have a C-section was because on my ultrasound, it said that he was not getting enough oxygen through the placenta, and we didn't know why at the time. And so originally I was getting ultrasounds every month because we had found in his gender scan ultrasound that he actually had one of his kidneys was enlarged. So on the last scan that they did before I had him is when they saw the problem with the ultrasound. I mean the umbilical cord. It wasn't getting enough oxygen flow. So he wasn't getting enough oxygen. So they tried to keep him in as long as possible, but so that was on a Thursday. Friday, they told me to come back Friday morning to do another ultrasound because they wanted to check and just see if maybe for whatever reason, maybe I hadn't eaten, or maybe something went on that day that just kind of made the flow of oxygen low that particular day. So they went to check again. So they had me come back in that Friday morning, and so they kept me on the fetal monitor, and they did another ultrasound, and it was still looking about the same. So at that point, they kept me on the monitor for the rest of the day, really. And so I asked them, am I gonna be, going home soon? And they were like, well, right now we're gonna keep you probably over the weekend just to monitor you. I'm like, okay, all right. I'd rather than monitor him over the weekend and things be fine than for something to happen. So they were monitoring me. And so they said, we're going to give you 2 shots to basically increase, his lung, or to try and grow his lungs faster. So they gave me the first one on Friday afternoon, and then they gave me another one Saturday afternoon after they did another ultrasound and saw that the placenta, or saw that basically the was looking the same way. Like there was no changes in terms of the umbilical cord. There still wasn't giving enough oxygen. So about Saturday night, early Sunday morning, I started having contractions, and so they gave me magnesium to basically slow that down, which they did. They slowed them down because, like I said, they wanted to keep me pregnant for as long as possible because I was only 30 weeks. I was only 30 weeks at that time. And so what happened next? So Sunday, they just kept me on the monitor. They didn't give me an ultrasound, but they said by Monday we're going to give you an ultrasound. And so they said basically by that point they had told me I'm going to be in the hospital basically until I give birth. So either until I give birth naturally, or until they have to induce me or give me a C-section. So Monday comes, they do an ultrasound, and they say it's still looking the same, and he wasn't responding properly on the when they gave him the non-stress test. He wasn't responding properly. So whenever you drink water or eat, his heart rate should go up, and it wasn't. It was staying the exact same. So they were concerned that there was other stuff going on with him. So Monday, they did the ultrasound, and when the doctor left, or the tech left, and so I said, okay, I sat there while we were waiting, and I talked to Christian. I said, Christian, I feel like you're telling mommy that you're ready to come out. I feel like you're telling mommy you're ready to come out because, you're not doing so well on the inside right now. So I said, if you're ready to come out, mommy's ready for you. Doctor came back in, said we're going to take him by C-section tonight at 6. I said, okay. All right, well then that's what we got to do. So now the fear didn't kick in. The fear did not kick in until about 5 o'clock. 5:30ish, they came in and started to prep me, and and made me wipe down with the little chlorohex something. The little wipes they make you wipe down with to basically sterilize your body. And so I'm putting on my little head stuff and my little feet gown stuff, and I started panicking. They had me on IV fluids and stuff like that, and basically if they wouldn't have had me hooked up to the IV, I probably would have left the hospital. Like, I was in full panic mode. It was so scary, because the only thing I kept thinking was like, oh my gosh, they're gonna cut me open and I'm gonna be awake. Like, I'm gonna be awake and they're gonna cut me open. And I was just like, I'm so scared. Like, oh my gosh, I still get scared thinking about it. So I'll do a separate video on in terms of how the C-section went, for those of you who have never had one. But yeah, I'll give you a separate video for that. We'll just continue to Christian. So when they did the C-section, they took him out, and he was not breathing. He wasn't breathing. And then his heart rate was like 60. So he had a really low heart rate, and he was just not breathing. He was non-responsive, basically. And so I didn't know that he was that bad until like a few days later. Because when they actually took me, when he came out, like, they didn't let me see him. Like, they immediately took him over to the little table, or the little isolette that they put him in. And so, I'm talking, because I'm still scared because I'm on the operating table. But I'm also, just thinking, okay, they're going to get him breathing and he's going to be fine, whatever. And so, long story short, that was not the case. So he basically, they basically had to take him down to the NICU. And from what his dad said, because his dad went down while they were sewing me up, went down with them. And so he went down with them to go see how he was doing and stuff like that. And basically, he said that they were working on him nonstop for about an hour, just trying to get him to breathe. And so, by the time I finally came down to see him, he was on a ventilator. So that night, the first night they wheeled me down to go see him, I was so drugged up. I know I went down there, but I can't tell you what we talked about. I can't tell you who I talked to or what happened. Well, I do know who I talked to now because me and her are close now, and she was like, yeah, that first night you were out of it. So but yeah, so that was, so the first night I don't know exactly what happened. So just throughout over the past, so long story short, my baby's still in the hospital. We have not been able to bring him home yet. He's had a lot of issues. He's had a lot more issues than a normal preemie would have. So, he was born at 30 weeks, 6 days gestation. And so the problem is that he ended up having a stroke. He had a stroke either when I was still pregnant with him or shortly after I gave birth to him. He had a stroke. And so all the issues that he had as a preemie were multiplied by that. So throughout the course of his stay in the NICU, he basically has had issues with his brain. He's got cysts on cysts on his brain, and he's had some bleeding in his brain, which is, I think, is cleared up for the most part. And so then he has, so let's just work our way down. So then we were concerned about his vision, because where the cysts are in his brain, they're around his vision center. And so, but as it stands right now, his vision is okay. His vision is on track to where it needs to be in terms of maturity. So then also, his lungs, he was having a lot of issues with his lungs. His lungs weren't working properly. His heart had issues. He had, what is it called? I forgot the name of it, but basically, like, the pressures in his heart weren't functioning properly. So, and one of his valves doesn't open and close properly. So he had heart issues. He had issues with his liver. His liver was enlarged, and he had a high direct bilirubin count, which I found out there's two different types of bilirubin. There's the one that causes like baby jaundice. So that's like, that's just the regular bilirubin number. And then there's your direct bilirubin, which indicates like a problem with your bile system. So either you don't have bile ducts, or they're clogged, or they're underdeveloped, or something along those lines, basically causing you to have a higher direct bilirubin count, because your body's not breaking down the bile, which signifies that your liver is having an issue. So there's that. And then what else happened? So at one point, I think his kidneys were having a little bit of an issue, but that ended up resolving itself. And so throughout his stay, he kept getting, like, he would get really, really sick, to the point where they would have to put him back on the ventilator. So throughout this process, he had come off the ventilator and then gone on to like a CPAP, or a bubble CPAP, and then we would try and get him onto the nasal cannula, which is just the two prongs here, and then like a little, like, strap kind of thing, as opposed to like a full-on oxygen mask like the bubble CPAP or the CPAP. And so basically we've always, since day one, we've been struggling with his ability to breathe on his own. And so what else? So so anytime he got sick, that's where I'm at. So anytime he would get sick, we would start weaning him off of the bubble CPAP and stuff like that, get him to the nasal cannula, and then something would happen and he would get sick. And he would go from, almost there, like almost, to that point where we're reaching the next milestone, and then we'd have to start all the way back over. So that means he would get re-intubated and have to be on the vent. And so, and like he would just constantly just get really, 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 like, deathly sick. And so basically it got to a point where the last time he got sick like that, the doctors basically told us, one of two things: either we can just, at this point, we're just patching him up. As we go. So you can basically, we can continue to try and patch him up, intubate him whenever he gets sick like this. But, it's like, long story short, he's dying right now. And we can either keep re-intubating him and keep trying to, patch him up, or they can basically make him comfortable and we hold him till he dies, which was not an option. It was not an option for me at all. It wasn't an option for us, his parents. Like, it wasn't an option for us at all. So I said, well, keep patching him until we figure it out. And so early on as well, we had issues with his sugar dropping. His sugars would drop, and we would have to basically, they would have to keep putting more and more sugar into his what's it called, his feedings. So he wasn't taking milk at the time, he was just getting the IV nutrition. So they would have to add more sugar to his IV nutrition to, get him, like, to basically stabilize his sugar. And so it had stopped doing that for a while. Like, it had stopped dropping. I don't remember what it was that we did, or that we found out that made it stop dropping, but it stopped dropping. And so basically the last time it dropped, the doctor gave him more sugar, and we brought the sugar up. And then the doctor said, okay, next time his sugar drops, we're going to run all these tests to kind of see if there's something underlying, but we can't run these tests until his sugar drops. So we're going to run these tests during the whole process of his sugar dropping, so that way we can find, the cause of it, or the root of it. And so we waited and waited and waited, and his sugar never dropped, surprisingly. So we're like, okay, his sugar's not dropping. We made some progress. Yes, And so this was before they told us, basically, like, you have two options. Either let him die or we keep patching him. So this was right before then. So after, let me slow down. So we were waiting for his sugar to drop. His sugar never dropped. So he got sick, and then they told us, you have two options. And so we told him, no, we don't want him to die. We don't want to hold him until he dies. None of that. We just keep patching him. So they patched him up, kept working with him, and then for some reason or another, his sugar dropped, and they were finally able to run the tests that they needed. During those tests, we found that one of the main issues, I don't know why my screen just went down like that, but one of the major issues that he had was his adrenal glands do not work. So basically, whenever he got sick, his body wouldn't send the signal that says, hey, we need to fight off this infection. Instead, his body would just be like, hey, look, there goes some of them sick cells, but there ain't nothing to do with them. So, his body just be chilling. Like, wow, these sick cells are just kind of invading his body, they're just like, hey, what's up? But anyway, so they, so once we found that out, they put him on hydrocortisone, so that way he could, because he'll have to be on hydrocortisone for the rest of his life, because, like I said, his adrenal glands don't work. So the stroke basically damaged that connection. So his adrenal glands don't work for that reason. So I'm like, okay. To me, I'm like, whatever we have to do, that's fine. As long as you're not telling me that he's gonna die, I'll do whatever needs to be done. So we did that, and so he's been on that, and ever since then, like, things have been getting progressively better in terms of his liver. He doesn't have issues with his liver anymore. He doesn't have issues with his heart anymore. His lungs are clear, but we still can't get him to breathe, like, without oxygen support. And so about 2 weeks ago, he was transferred to our local hospital. He was transferred to UNM. And so since he's been there, like, we've tried to get him back on the nasal cannula, just trying to see if maybe since he's gotten bigger, he can now, maybe he can now do it on his own. And so he still can't. And so what they found was that he has laryngomalacia, I believe it's called. And so basically, where his larynx is, the larynx skin, I guess, or tissue, is floppy, so it doesn't close and open like it's supposed to. So they were supposed to do a surgery to fix that. However, when they went in, and this happened a couple days ago, So this happened on Wednesday. So when they went in to do the surgery, they found that the way his airway structured, they can't see the area well enough to be able to do the surgery. So at this point, today being Friday, Christian is scheduled to get a tracheostomy, which is basically where they're going to cut open a piece of his airway, and they're going to put a tube in there to basically, so that way he can breathe through the tube and he won't have to have a mask and stuff like that, which, you know, it's going to be a lot of work. I know it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a rough journey when it comes to that, but we've been through so much already, you know. At this point, it's a party, you know. At this point, it's like, all right, as long as he's alive, bring on whatever you got to bring on, you know. It's like, we'll handle it. And so so he is scheduled for surgery today. However, he was an add-on surgery, so he might not get it done today. They might have to do it another day. They might have to do it sometime next week. But as it stands right now, we are definitely getting a tracheostomy for him. And so hopefully in about a month or two, you know, once we've gone through all our training and stuff like that, we can hopefully get him home. So that's the plan right now. That's the basics of Christian's story. There's so many different parts to it that I want to make separate videos for, but right now, like, that's pretty much his story. It's like, I have a special needs child. I have a strong baby boy, you know, and he's made me stronger throughout the process. He's made a lot of people stronger, actually. He's affected a lot of people. But yeah, that's a whole different that's a whole different segment to the video. But yeah, but he's hanging on, so we're hanging on, and we're all fighting this together. And, you know, Christian's gonna get through it all. We're all gonna make it through. And so when Christian comes home, then I'll let you guys meet him. But anyway, that's Christian's story, and I will talk to you guys later. Okay, bye.